Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. The Windsor Essex Public School Board says it's reviewing every program and department for efficiencies. That's to address a $9 million deficit. Plus, as one construction project in Sandwichtown finishes up, another one is about to begin. Residents are bracing for the largest phase of road work to start. And are you curious in pursuing a job in the electric vehicle industry? Workforce Windsor Essex has a new resource for you. The Public School Board says it's facing very difficult decisions as it grapples with a $9 million deficit. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa reports.
I'm trying to squeeze blood out of a stone at this point.
At a public school board meeting this week, that's how the treasurer described trying to find cuts in the part of the budget that doesn't include staff. And while they say they don't want to alarm anyone, the board has decided to review all programs, departments, and staffing complements to cut costs. The current school year budget is about $9 million over. The plan is to cover that by dipping into the board's surplus, which it says isn't a feasible long-term solution.
It's not a sustainable way to operate, and you've got to work with the funding that you have.
The board says the deficit is from a number of factors, like additional special education staff, student transportation, and higher facility costs, which have risen from inflation. As a result, it says everything is on the table in its review. When asked about staffing cuts, the board said,
"It's too early for us to really say, for me to say, because we need to work on that deep dive. We are supportive of our students, their education, their well-being, and that will always be at the forefront of any decisions that are made."
In an emailed statement, a spokesperson for the Ministry of Education said that the government has invested historic amounts into Ontario's public education. It says that this year alone, the government has provided $457 million to the Greater Essex County District School Board. But the union says funding from the government hasn't kept up with inflation or high student needs.
The funding formula is not fixed and is not updated to what the students need of 2023-24, this is going to continue to happen and get worse. The answer is the government needs to increase the funding.
The board's revised budget will be submitted to the Ministry of Education next week, and more information will be provided in a February finance meeting. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor Regional Hospital is slowly starting to reintroduce its electronic system for patient records after a ransomware attack on October 23rd. Patient and staff data was stolen and some appointments were canceled. The hospital has been recording information on paper, but said today during a board meeting that as of December 2nd, it began adding that information to its electronic systems.
Important to note, though, this is not a full restoration of all of our electronic systems. We have hundreds of different systems that integrate into the electronic health record. So some of them will not be fully electronic or integrated.
Some of the systems that won't be back online for weeks include medication dispensing units, lab results, and diagnostic imaging. And Windsor Regional Hospital is introducing a new mask mandate starting just after midnight tonight. Anyone coming into the hospital must wear a mask while visiting in a patient's room. Windsor Regional is also asking people to keep that mask on even when outside of the designated bed space. The hospital says the change was preventative as we head into peak respiratory illness season. Historically, they say the first 2 weeks of January are when we see an increase following holiday gatherings. There's been a mask mandate for all staff within 2 meters of patients since October. A 19-year-old woman will be charged with impaired driving after a fatal crash overnight in the West End. It happened just before midnight on Cameron Avenue, north of University Ave. Windsor police say a 21-year-old passenger in the vehicle was taken to hospital and pronounced dead. Police say officers responded to reports of a vehicle traveling fast, losing control and hitting a tree as well as a parked car. The woman charged was taken to hospital with serious injuries. A high-ranking member of the Bank of Canada says the recent immigration surge has propped up rent and home prices. He made those comments at the Charo Club in Windsor during a speech to the Chamber of Commerce. Deputy Governor Tory Gravel said while the interest rate remains at 5%, the rate could increase again because inflation is rising largely due to housing costs.
Given the risk to the inflation outlook, We remain prepared to increase the policy rate further if needed.
During his speech, he urged cities to speed up permitting processes for new homes. He also said zoning restrictions need to change to allow builders to develop land. Construction workers also came up. He said there's a shortage of workers right now that's preventing new housing from getting built. Developers have previously said that high interest rates have prevented them from building. That's not something the Bank of Canada sees.
Canada has been in a chronic period of undersupply. Of course, interest rates play a role in the capacity for developers to finance some of the buildings, but we've had low interest rate periods where we've had undersupply. Now we have a high interest rate period that we've had undersupply. So it's very clear that it's not a single factor. The interest rates are not the single factor holding back housing supply.
Grocery bills will continue to climb next year. That's according to a new report released today. The average family of four is expected to spend just over $16,000 in 2024, but price increases are expected to be slower compared to the last 2 years. And as Anisha Patel reports, there will be savings on some goods.
Shoppers have been doing what they can to stretch their budgets.
Just trying to find different ways to bring in extra income, just to be able to provide for myself.
It has to go down to pastas now and just simple sauces instead of buying chicken.
But I certainly look for items on sale, but it is a big concern.
Over the past 2 years, grocery bills have soared, but 2024 may bring some stability to food prices. The average family of four is expected to spend an extra $700 annually.
We are expecting prices to go up, but in a more modest way.
Researchers predict overall food prices will increase 2.5% to 4.5% next year. Dairy and fruit costs could see moderate gains. Baked goods, meat, and vegetables may see bigger price increases.
Consumers have less cash than last year, and so they're going to be looking for bargains.
A few packaged food staples like canned goods could actually get cheaper, as many industry challenges have eased.
Input prices, fertilizer prices, raw material prices, even energy prices have all come down a lot.
Still, after 2 years of sticker shock, grocery stores themselves are under intense scrutiny.
Our grocery store industry is a cozy compact between a small number of very big companies, and they were able to take advantage of this situation to fatten their own profits.
Grocery executives have repeatedly been called to Parliament Hill to face questions over rising food prices. Galen Weston is defending the record profits at Loblaws.
That is not an indication of bad practice. It's not an indication of some sort of profiteering. It's just an indication of a business operating exactly the way that it should.
Loblaws and the other big chains insist they're taking action to help consumers. Shoppers hope those price freezes and discounts will help relieve the pressure on their budgets in 2024. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Join CBC Windsor to help the UHC hub of opportunities this holiday to make the season kind for our neighbors in need. For more information, you can go to cbc.ca/Windsor Sauce. Tomorrow is the day it sounds of the season, which means you're in for a special broadcast of CBC Windsor News at 6, as well as Windsor Morning. The special show is to help raise food and funds for the Unemployed Help Center, as the demand is greater than ever before. You can join us at the University of Windsor School of Creative Arts to watch us put on this show live. That's at the Old Armories building. We would love for you to swing by between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. Foods and funds will be collected during the live broadcast and in the days following. Road work along a stretch of Sandwich Street is almost done. Good news for the businesses, residents, and commuters forced to deal with it for more than 3 months. But as Dale Molnar tells us, as one project comes to an end, another will soon begin.
The construction work on Sandwich Street between Ojibwe Parkway and Chappelle Avenue has been going on for 14 weeks, but it is coming to an end soon.
We have appreciated the patience of the community as we have moved through the last 14 weeks.
The public got an update Wednesday from the Windsor-Detroit Border Authority. The next areas to be torn up will be a long stretch of Sandwich Street from Chappelle through the business district to the roundabout and from the Ojibwe Parkway intersection to McKee Road. Business people in Sandwichtown are bracing for a summer that might chase away customers.
Well, I hope they keep some access for traffic going both ways, if possible. And I just hope we know ahead of time so we can coordinate and be able to communicate with the customers, let them know where they can park so that they can still get to us.
Ward 2 Councillor Fabio Costante says there will be some disruption, but he says the end result will be worth the pain. He says he still has to clarify with engineering whether traffic will be able to travel in both directions.
Yeah, the more we can keep traffic flowing in the normal pattern of flow, the better.
But also, we're hoping to do some fun, pedestrian-friendly things if it gets to the point where it gets difficult to get here by car.
Construction begins in the spring and will go on for several months. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
There's a new online resource to help people with traditional manufacturing job experience transition into the growing electric vehicle sector. It's called EV Career Pathways, and it was announced today by Workforce Windsor Essex.
There's still a little bit of uncertainty about the skill sets that are needed for the jobs that are popping up in the EV sector. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for job seekers to find that information to get a jump start. And we have a really qualified workforce here already. We have a rich automotive industry, and a lot of those individuals can transfer into those jobs now with very minimal upskilling, some without any upskilling at all.
Workforce Windsor Essex launched the online resource today with a presentation to members of Unifor Local 195. The webpage breaks down EV jobs into 5 major categories. It also outlines more than 60 EV career pathways for people with experience in the auto industry. A provincial grant funded the development of the webpage. The feature is live now at workforcewindsoressex.com. The province's Auditor General is raising questions about driver testing and training in Ontario. Among the issues being highlighted, a shorter test to get your driver's license and the test to ensure senior drivers are safe behind the wheel. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop has more.
This driving instructor wants the longer driving test for a full G license brought back, requiring a parallel park and a 3-point turn, axed due to the pandemic backlog, now only required for an initial G2 test. He says new drivers forget.
When they go for G test and they come to us and they have no idea how to do park, how to turn, and that make us serious concern, like we scared.
The acting Auditor General says the testing backlog is cleared, but the shorter test remains. He also raised concerns about people who've had multiple license suspensions. They have 6 times the fatality rate of other drivers, yet don't have to be retested.
People that are driving under the influence have to do that. So we're suggesting that the ministry have to take a look at this.
And he questioned the testing for seniors 80 years and up.
There's no driving test for them. It's a cognitive test. So someone has to go in, basically identify what a clock is, and draw that clock to basically get their driving test or driving license.
He found people who passed that test were more likely than the general driving population to have caused the collisions they were involved in and had twice as many fatal collisions. The Alzheimer's Society of Ontario points to another safeguard. Optometrists, doctors, and nurse practitioners all have to alert the Transportation Ministry of health changes. It can lead to either conditions on someone's license or it being revoked.
This captures many individuals who might even before the age of 80, when the mandatory 2-year review at drive test comes in, quite a few individuals who wouldn't pass that test would have had their license revoked well before then anyway.
Though the auditor found the ministry didn't reach out to those medical practitioners to increase awareness of the need to report medical conditions. The Alzheimer's Society wants more supports for older seniors to ensure they can get around if they do lose their license. A spokesperson for the Transportation Minister says Ontario is the only place in Canada that requires seniors 80 and up to successfully finish a group education session. That includes a senior driving video, as well as that clock test, and also a vision test every 2 years. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Do you remember what Christmas gift you asked for in 1985? This week's Rose City Rewind explores the most popular toys on the market 38 years ago. This report was done by former CBC Windsor reporter Brian Worrell.
It's generally accepted that the toys of any particular period reflect the society of that time. These Victorian toys, for instance, speak of a simpler society than ours, less technological and more conservative. In the 1980s, the age of super technology, Star Wars, and instant communications, once again the toys seem to reflect the times.
Okay, they can move by themselves without you having to move them.
So are there some things that you have sold out of and there's just no way you're going to have it before Christmas?
Oh yes, quite a few things. Most of the Fisher-Price things, there's no way you're going to get any more of those. Transformers. A lot of things like that.
One of the most popular toys is not technological or warlike and does not have its own TV show. It's a wrinkly, sad-faced puppy dog named Wrinkles. The Canadian-made puppet is almost sold out. Perhaps it helped that the Canadian Toy Testing Council, a consumers group, proclaimed Wrinkles Toy of the Year.
There's just so much that can be done with this puppet in a perfectly normal way.
Finally, some sun today with a beautiful sunset to top it off. We're looking at some even better conditions to ring in the weekend. Your full weather forecast coming up after the break. Colette, I'm very excited for Sounds of the Season tomorrow. As I mentioned earlier in the show, we're hoping anyone who wants to drop by does. I love to get the chance to get to meet some of our viewers. If you're thinking of heading out, what kind of weather are we in for?
Yeah, so this is the thing, Meg. There are no excuses. It's not like we're going to have bad road conditions or cold temperatures or anything like that. We're really going to be treated, frankly, to some fair weather. So all the best conditions to come down for Sounds of the Season. Yeah, so let's get into it, and I'll show you what we're talking about. Okay, it was already pretty nice today, I guess you'd say, but there's even milder air that's going to be moving in, so the temperature going up, and for at least a portion of the day, we should also get some sunshine in there. So just kind of show you the big picture of what's going on here. Still some very cool temperatures in the nation's capital as the tail end of this front sort of stalling out. So the warm air trying to push north, the cold air still pushing back southward, and that's why that becomes nearly stationary. But otherwise, this wide area here is in the mild sector with mild and temperatures even in some cases in the Midwest, some record-setting readings there, and that's going to be sliding further eastward. I'm not saying record-setting for southwestern Ontario, but still pretty mild conditions. So 5 degrees right now, Sarnia as well, and 4 for London, Chatham, Kent, and those winds, you see where they're kind of shifting here. Wherever you're sort of closer to that frontal boundary or getting closer, we see the difference there. For example, eastern Ontario, where it's more still of a northerly flow, but otherwise we're all into this kind of south, mostly anyway, all into the south to southeasterly flow. And that's going to pick up a little bit into tomorrow. It shifts more to the south-southwest, and those winds, yeah, again, we get into a situation into the afternoon where they're a little bit gusty, over 40, even 50 kilometers an hour at times. So no active weather to speak of for your overnight. Things looking good. Still just a little bit of action there over towards the St. Lawrence River Valley, and then going ahead to tomorrow. So at least for the early part of the day, should have a nice slice of sunshine here in southwestern Ontario. And then we are going to see some of those low clouds really pulling in as we get into the afternoon and closer to showtime into the evening. But still the mild temperatures will be there and still dry conditions, and the winds aren't that bad, okay? So just checking out what happens after that. Then we get into scattered showers, okay? As we get into Saturday night into Sunday, it is a more organized rainfall that'll go through. And then the backside of that, a lot of that's in the overnight hours, okay? So it's not going to be a big problem. And then the backside of that, we'll have just a few isolated showers Sunday as the temperatures come down, a few flurries possible. But anything overnight tonight, yeah, the temperatures will actually be going up towards morning. So we dip down a couple of degrees, and then we'll be back to about 5 degrees tomorrow morning around 8 o'clock, and then we're headed to 11. So some really great conditions there. 13 on Saturday, and again, it's really Saturday night into Sunday, Meg, where the rain's more organized. So quite a treat coming our way weather-wise.
That's a great-looking Friday forecast. Thanks so much for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
More news coming up after the break. Stay tuned. Is it possible to fly overseas from Canada for the price of a cup of coffee? It is, if you don't include all the taxes, fees, and other charges on your plane ticket. A travel agency says one Canadian airline is pushing super low fares in an effort to squeeze agents out of commission. The CBC's Angelina King has the story.
Jeff Verman has been in the travel industry for more than 25 years and has seen a lot. But a recent flight booking one of his employees did for clients with Air Transat made him do a double take.
It's just not a truthful, honest approach to the pricing of an airline ticket.
It was for Toronto to Lisbon. On first glance, it looks like the ticket cost $3.50. That is the base fare, but the taxes, fees, and surcharges are an extra $720. Travel agents get a commission from the airline on the base fare. So on this booking, that was 18 cents a ticket, a fraction of the approximately $15 they'd usually get on a booking like this.
It's ridiculous. It's insulting. This is a deliberate move to pay us less.
Verman and other travel agents make a profit two ways: commissions on bookings and service fees from clients. Verman says his company lost money on the Air Transat booking and says if this continues, he'll have to increase fees to clients to stay in business. He's also concerned about the general lack of transparency.
It's basically saying to consumers that you're flying for free except for the taxes and surcharges, etc.
So what exactly are these surcharges? Let's take a look at another Air Transat flight from Toronto to Lisbon. This one leaves in January. If I select the Eco Standard option, the base fare is even cheaper. It's just $2, but the flight is $720. Taxes, fees, and charges amount to just over $117. On this booking, that includes things like a passenger charge from Portugal and an airport improvement fee in Canada. But the bulk of the price comes from what's listed as other ATC, or additional transportation charges. Those are the costs that it takes to operate the flight itself, things like fuel and insurance.
It's the Wild West when it comes to what the surcharge. It's unregulated and no oversight. Addition to your ticket price, that is determined purely on the whim of the airline. The travel agencies are getting squeezed. There's no doubt about it.
John Graddick says the government doesn't care how it's split up as long as the total price is clear.
There are a lot of rules and regulations around tickets.
This travel agency owner says more transparency around pricing would help, especially on more complicated bookings when customers pay with points or want a refund.
There's so many different nuances that really create confusion, uncertainty.
That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.